Lady Margaret Thornton had worked in royal households for over 30 years, but she still remembered her first day at Buckingham Palace like it happened yesterday. The head butler, Mr. Charles Whitmore, led her through corridors lined with priceless paintings and into the staff dining room where she would learn the most important lesson of her career. "Watch the Queen's handbag," he whispered as they observed the royal family through a discreet window that allowed staff to monitor formal dinners. "Everything depends on that handbag." Margaret looked confused. The Queen's small black purse sat innocently on the table beside her place setting. It seemed ordinary enough, certainly nothing that would command such attention from the palace staff. "When Her Majesty places her handbag on the table," Mr. Whitmore continued, "it means she wants to end the conversation within 5 minutes. When she moves it to the floor, the entire event ends immediately. No exceptions." This was Margaret's introduction to the complex world of royal dining signals, a secret language that had developed over centuries of formal protocol. Every gesture, every movement, every seemingly casual action carried meaning that could determine the success or failure of a state dinner. The royal dining room at Buckingham Palace stretched nearly 40 feet in length, with mahogany panels reaching toward an ornate ceiling decorated with golden details. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables that could seat up to 160 guests. The room had witnessed countless historic moments, from peace treaties to royal engagements, all orchestrated through carefully planned dining experiences. But, beneath the grandeur lay an intricate system of communication that most guests never noticed. The royal family had perfected the art of silent conversation, using everyday objects and simple gestures to convey messages that kept events running smoothly while maintaining the dignity expected of such occasions. Queen Elizabeth herself had mastered these signals during her early years on the throne. She learned from her mother, Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother, who had navigated royal protocol during some of the most challenging periods in British history. The tradition passed from generation to generation, each adding their own subtle variations while maintaining the core principles. The handbag signal was perhaps the most famous among palace staff, but it was far from the only one. The Queen's approach to managing social situations required constant attention from those serving her. A slight adjustment of her gloves might indicate displeasure with the conversation topic. The way she held her wineglass could signal whether she wanted more interaction with a particular guest or preferred to move on to other matters. Margaret learned that observing these signals required years of practice. New staff members often missed the subtle cues, leading to awkward moments that experienced servants worked hard to prevent. The Queen's personal attendants developed an almost telepathic understanding of her needs, responding to signals so slight that untrained observers would never notice them. During state dinners, the complexity increased dramatically. Foreign dignitaries brought their own cultural expectations and communication styles, creating situations where misunderstandings could have diplomatic consequences. The Queen had learned to adapt her signals while maintaining British traditions, creating a delicate balance that preserved both protocol and international relationships. One particular evening stood out in Margaret's memory. The president of a major European nation was visiting, bringing with him a reputation for lengthy speeches and detailed discussions about trade agreements. The Queen had scheduled a formal dinner, but intelligence from the Foreign Office suggested the president might try to extend conversations beyond appropriate limits. As the evening began, Margaret watched from her position near the serving entrance. The Queen appeared relaxed and engaged, discussing topics ranging from art collections to shared historical connections between their nations. The president seemed genuinely charmed by her knowledge and wit, and the conversation flowed naturally through the early courses. However, as the main course arrived, the president began steering the discussion toward specific trade negotiations that were scheduled for formal meetings the following day. The Queen maintained her gracious demeanor, but Margaret noticed subtle changes in her posture and hand positions that indicated growing concern about the direction of the conversation. The Queen's handbag remained beside her place setting, signaling that she was comfortable continuing the current interaction. But her left hand moved to rest lightly on the stem of her wineglass, a gesture that experienced staff recognized as a request for gentle intervention to redirect the conversation. Lord Chamberlain, seated nearby, caught the signal and smoothly introduced a topic about the magnificent architecture of the palace, drawing attention to the historical details of the dining room itself. The president responded enthusiastically, and the conversation moved away from business matters back to more appropriate dinner topics. This seamless intervention demonstrated the sophisticated communication system that operated during royal dining events. Multiple layers of staff and officials understood their roles in supporting the Queen's management of social situations, creating an invisible network that ensured events proceeded according to carefully planned schedules. Margaret learned that the Queen's dining signals had evolved throughout her reign, adapting to changing circumstances and different types of events. Private family dinners required different approaches than state occasions, and the signals used with close friends differed from those employed with foreign dignitaries or government officials. The development of these communication methods reflected the Queen's deep understanding of human psychology and social dynamics. She recognized that direct confrontation or obvious time management would create uncomfortable situations for guests, potentially damaging relationships that were crucial for Britain's international standing. Instead, the signal system allowed for graceful transitions and natural conclusions to conversations and events. Guests rarely realized they were being managed, instead feeling that they had enjoyed pleasant, well-paced interactions that concluded at appropriate moments. The Queen's staff took pride in their ability to interpret and respond to these signals effectively. They understood that their success in reading her communications directly impacted the success of royal events and, by extension, Britain's diplomatic relationships and royal family's reputation. Training new staff members in these communication methods required patience and careful observation. Senior servants like Mr. Whitmore had developed comprehensive systems for teaching the signals, often spending months with new employees before trusting them to work during important events. The consequences of missing or misinterpreting signals could be significant. Margaret remembered occasions when staff members failed to recognize the Queen's desire to end conversations, leading to situations where guests overstayed their welcome or discussions continued beyond appropriate limits. Such mistakes required careful management to prevent diplomatic incidents or social awkwardness. As Margaret's experience grew, she began to appreciate the remarkable skill required to maintain this communication system while appearing completely natural and unscripted. The Queen had perfected the ability to signal her needs while engaging authentically with guests, creating genuine connections even while managing the practical requirements of royal protocol. The dining signals represented just one aspect of the complex choreography that surrounded royal events. Every element, from table settings to seating arrangements to conversation topics, was carefully planned and executed according to traditions that had been refined over centuries of royal entertaining. Understanding these signals also required knowledge of the broader context surrounding each event. The Queen's communication needs varied depending on the political climate, the specific guests involved, and the purposes of each gathering. Staff members learned to anticipate potential challenges and prepare appropriate responses to various scenarios. The handbag signal, while famous among palace insiders, was accompanied by dozens of other gestures and positioning cues that created a comprehensive communication vocabulary. The Queen could indicate preferences about everything from room temperature to background music levels through subtle adjustments that trained observers learned to recognize and respond to immediately. This sophisticated system reflected the Queen's recognition that successful royal entertaining required constant attention to detail and the ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. The signals allowed her to maintain control over events while preserving the gracious hospitality that was essential to the royal family's public image. Margaret's 30-year career had provided her with countless opportunities to observe the evolution and refinement of these communication methods. She had watched as younger members of the royal family learned the signals, developing their own variations while maintaining the core principles that ensured smooth operation of royal events. The dining signals had become so deeply embedded in palace culture that they operated almost automatically during major events. Staff members responded to the Queen's communications with practiced efficiency, creating an environment where royal entertaining appeared effortless while actually requiring extraordinary coordination and attention to detail. As she reflected on her experiences, Margaret realized that the Queen's dining signals represented more than simple time management or event coordination. They demonstrated a profound understanding of leadership, diplomacy, and human relations that had served Britain well throughout the Queen's remarkable reign. The secret language of royal dining continued to evolve, adapting to new challenges and changing expectations while maintaining the essential elements that had made it effective for generations. For those privileged enough to understand and participate in this communication system, it represented both a tremendous responsibility and a unique insight into the sophisticated methods that supported one of the world's most enduring monarchies. These carefully developed signals ensured that royal dining events achieved their intended purposes while maintaining the dignity, grace, and effectiveness that had become hallmarks of the British royal family's approach to entertaining and diplomacy. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Windsor Castle as Princess and prepared for what would become one of the most challenging diplomatic dinners of her career. The visiting delegation from Japan included government ministers, business leaders, and cultural ambassadors, each bringing their own expectations about proper dining etiquette and social interaction. Sarah Henderson, the princess's private secretary, had spent weeks preparing briefing materials about Japanese dining customs and potential areas where British and Japanese protocols might conflict. The challenge was creating an evening that honored both traditions while maintaining the sophisticated communication system that British royals had developed over centuries. Remember, Sarah advised the serving staff during their morning briefing, Princess Anne uses different signals than Her Majesty. Watch her wedding ring. When she turns it inward toward her palm, she wants the current course to be served more quickly. When she turns it outward, she needs more time before the next service. The ring signal was Princess Anne's personal contribution to the royal communication system. Unlike her mother's handbag method, Anne preferred more discreet gestures that wouldn't be noticed even by guests seated directly beside her. The technique had developed during her early years representing the royal family at international events, where she had learned that obvious signals could be misinterpreted by guests from different cultural backgrounds. Japanese dining culture emphasized respect for food, careful timing, and deep appreciation for each course. The visiting delegation would expect longer periods between services, allowing for proper contemplation and discussion of each dish. However, British state dinner protocol typically followed faster pacing to accommodate multiple courses and extensive conversation topics. Princess Anne had studied Japanese customs extensively, understanding that rushing through courses would be considered disrespectful, while allowing too much time might be interpreted as lack of preparation or insufficient attention to guest comfort. Her ring signals would be crucial for managing these competing requirements throughout the evening. The dining room at Windsor Castle created a more intimate atmosphere than Buckingham Palace, with seating for approximately 60 guests arranged around tables that encouraged closer conversation. The room's historical significance added weight to the occasion, as it had hosted countless diplomatic meetings that had shaped international relationships over several centuries. As guests arrived, Princess Anne positioned herself to greet each delegation member personally, demonstrating the respect for individual recognition that Japanese culture valued highly. Her greeting process followed carefully planned timing that allowed sufficient interaction with each guest while maintaining schedule requirements for the formal dinner service. The evening began with traditional British hospitality, including a reception period that allowed guests to admire the castle's art collection and historical displays. Princess Anne moved through the reception area, using subtle positioning signals to indicate to her staff which conversations should be encouraged to continue and which might benefit from gentle redirection toward other topics or guests. Her positioning signals were remarkably sophisticated, developed through years of managing complex social situations. When she stood with her weight evenly distributed, it indicated satisfaction with current conversation flow. A slight shift toward her right foot suggested that staff should prepare to facilitate conversation transitions, while leaning toward her left foot meant she wanted current discussions to continue without interruption. These positioning cues were invisible to guests but clearly recognizable to trained staff members who had learned to observe the princess's posture and movement patterns. The system allowed for natural conversation management without obvious intervention or awkward interruptions that might embarrass guests or create diplomatic difficulties. As the dinner service began, the complexity of managing both British and Japanese expectations became apparent. The Japanese delegation appreciated the careful presentation of each course but seemed surprised by the relatively quick transitions between dishes. Princess Anne recognized the need to adjust her usual timing preferences to accommodate cultural differences while maintaining the overall schedule requirements. Her ring signals became more frequent as she worked to find the right balance. Turning the ring inward indicated that staff should slow the service pace, allowing more time for appreciation and discussion of each course. This adjustment demonstrated her sensitivity to guest comfort while maintaining her ability to control the evening's progression. The main course presented particular challenges, as it featured traditional British cuisine prepared with influences from Japanese cooking techniques. The fusion approach was intended to honor both cultures, but it required careful explanation and discussion that could easily extend beyond planned timeframes. Princess Anne used her wineglass positioning to signal her preferences for managing the extended discussion. When she moved her glass closer to her plate, it indicated that the current conversation topic should continue. Moving the glass toward the center of the table suggested that discussion should be redirected toward broader topics that included more participants. The Japanese guests responded positively to these adjustments, appreciating the princess's obvious efforts to accommodate their cultural preferences while maintaining British hospitality traditions. Several delegation members commented on the thoughtful pacing and the opportunity to properly appreciate each course without feeling rushed or pressured. However, the extended timing created challenges for the serving staff, who had to adjust their preparations for subsequent courses while maintaining food quality and presentation standards. The kitchen staff had planned their cooking schedules based on typical British dining pace, and the slower progression required quick adaptations to ensure that later courses would be served at optimal temperatures and freshness. Princess Anne recognized these challenges and used additional signals to communicate with kitchen staff through the serving team. Her napkin positioning provided information about timing preferences for upcoming courses. Placing her napkin slightly to the left of her plate indicated that the next course should be delayed, while positioning it to the right suggested that preparations should continue according to original schedules. These multiple layers of communication demonstrated the sophisticated coordination required for successful royal entertaining when cultural differences created additional complexity. The princess had to maintain awareness of guest comfort, staff capabilities, kitchen timing, and diplomatic objectives simultaneously while appearing completely relaxed and naturally engaged with her guests. The conversation topics also required careful management throughout the evening. Japanese business culture emphasized building personal relationships before discussing professional matters, while British diplomatic tradition often moved more quickly towards substantive policy discussions. Princess Anne had to balance these different expectations while maintaining interesting dialogue that engaged all participants. Her conversation management signals included hand gestures that were natural enough to avoid detection but specific enough to provide clear guidance to staff members. Touching her pearl earring briefly indicated that the current conversation topic was productive and should be encouraged to continue. Adjusting her bracelet suggested that discussion might benefit from introduction of new topics or redirection toward different themes. The serving staff had been trained to recognize these signals and respond appropriately, either by creating natural opportunities for topic transitions or by allowing conversations to develop without interruption. Their success in interpreting and responding to the princess's communications directly affected the success of the entire diplomatic event. As the evening progressed, Princess Anne's signals became increasingly important for managing energy levels and maintaining guest engagement. The combination of cultural accommodation and extended timing had created a longer event than originally planned, requiring careful attention to ensure that guests remained comfortable and interested throughout the conclusion. Her posture signals indicated when she felt that energy levels were declining and interventions might be needed to revitalize conversations or prepare for natural conclusion points. Staff members responded by adjusting lighting levels, background music, or service timing to support the princess's efforts to maintain an engaging atmosphere. The dessert course provided opportunities for lighter conversation topics and cultural exchanges that built personal connections between British and Japanese participants. Princess Anne used her communication signals to encourage these interactions while managing the transition toward the evening's conclusion. Her final signals of the evening demonstrated the sophisticated planning required for diplomatic dinners. The timing of concluding remarks, farewell conversations, and departure logistics required coordination between multiple staff departments while maintaining the gracious hospitality that characterized successful royal events. The Japanese delegation's positive response to the evening validated Princess Anne's approach to adapting royal communication signals for international cultural requirements. Several guests specifically mentioned their appreciation for the thoughtful pacing and obvious attention to their cultural preferences, noting that the experience had enhanced their understanding of British hospitality traditions. The success of this diplomatic dinner illustrated how royal communication signals could be modified and expanded to meet changing requirements while maintaining their essential effectiveness. Princess Anne had demonstrated that the traditional system could evolve to accommodate new challenges without losing its fundamental purpose of ensuring smooth, successful royal events. Staff members gained valuable experience in interpreting modified signals and responding to more complex coordination requirements. Their success in supporting the princess's communication needs under challenging circumstances strengthened the overall capability of the royal household to manage diverse diplomatic and social situations. The evening also provided insights into how royal communication signals might continue to evolve as international relationships became increasingly important for Britain's global position. The ability to adapt traditional methods while maintaining their effectiveness would be crucial for future success in international royal entertaining. Princess Anne's innovative approach to signal modification demonstrated the dynamic nature of royal protocol, showing how established traditions could be enhanced and expanded to meet new requirements while preserving their essential character and effectiveness. The successful integration of cultural sensitivity with traditional British royal communication methods created a model for future international diplomatic entertaining. The crisis began during what should have been a routine state dinner at Buckingham Palace. Prince Charles, now King Charles III, was hosting the President of France and his wife for an evening that was intended to strengthen trade relationships and cultural exchanges between the two nations. However, an unexpected diplomatic incident had erupted just hours before the dinner, creating tension that threatened to overshadow the carefully planned event. James Mitchell, the palace protocol officer, received the urgent news at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. A British diplomat in Paris had made comments about French agricultural policies that were being interpreted as criticism of France's contribution to European Union trade agreements. The French delegation was understandably upset, and there were concerns that the president might use the dinner as an opportunity to address the controversy publicly. The challenge was enormous. Prince Charles needed to acknowledge the diplomatic tension while maintaining the productive atmosphere necessary for meaningful discussion about future cooperation. The standard royal communication signals would need to be adapted to handle a situation that required exceptional sensitivity and careful timing. His Royal Highness will need complete control over conversation flow tonight, James explained to the senior staff during an emergency briefing. We've developed additional signals specifically for managing difficult diplomatic situations. Watch his cufflinks. When he touches his right cufflink, we need immediate intervention to redirect conversation. Left cufflink means the current discussion is productive despite apparent tension. Prince Charles had spent years developing his own variation of royal dining signals, building on the foundation established by his mother while adding elements that reflected his personal communication style and the specific challenges he faced as heir to the throne. His signals tended to be more subtle than the Queen's handbag method, reflecting his preference for extremely discreet management that wouldn't be detected even by experienced diplomats. The dinner preparation took on urgent importance as staff members worked to create an environment that would support the prince's efforts to navigate the diplomatic difficulties. The seating arrangement was adjusted to ensure that potentially problematic conversations could be easily monitored and managed. Additional staff members were positioned throughout the dining room to respond quickly to any signals indicating need for intervention. The French delegation arrived with obvious tension, despite their diplomatic professionalism. The president maintained appropriate courtesy, but his wife appeared particularly upset about the earlier diplomatic incident. Her body language and conversation patterns suggested that she might be planning to raise the controversial topics during dinner, creating potential for significant diplomatic embarrassment. Prince Charles recognized the challenges immediately and began implementing his communication strategy from the moment guests entered the dining room. His positioning during the pre-dinner reception indicated to staff members which conversations were proceeding smoothly and which might require careful monitoring throughout the evening. His reception signals involved subtle changes in how he held his hands while speaking. Clasped hands behind his back indicated satisfaction with current conversation flow and confidence that guests were comfortable despite underlying tensions. Hands clasped in front suggested that he was managing difficult topics successfully but needed staff to be prepared for potential intervention. As guests moved to their seats, Prince Charles used eye contact with key staff members to communicate his assessment of the situation and his preliminary strategy for managing the dinner conversation. Brief eye contact with the head butler indicated that standard service timing should proceed. Longer eye contact with the protocol officer suggested that conversation management would require active support throughout the evening. The first course proceeded smoothly, with conversation focusing on cultural topics that allowed both British and French participants to discuss shared interests and positive examples of cooperation between their nations. Prince Charles encouraged these discussions while carefully monitoring the French president's wife, who seemed to be waiting for appropriate moments to introduce more controversial subjects. His cufflink signals became crucial during the second course when the conversation began moving toward economic topics that could easily lead to discussion of the agricultural policy controversy. Touching his right cufflink indicated that staff should prepare to create natural redirection opportunities, while his posture signals provided additional information about timing and preferred alternatives. The intervention came smoothly when a senior courtier introduced a question about the magnificent artwork displayed in the dining room, drawing attention to pieces that had connections to French artistic traditions. The redirection was so natural that guests responded enthusiastically, creating genuine engagement that moved conversation away from potentially problematic topics. Prince Charles's left cufflink touch indicated approval of this intervention and encouragement for staff to continue supporting similar conversation management throughout the evening. His communication with staff demonstrated the sophisticated coordination that was possible when royal signals were properly understood and implemented by experienced team members. However, the French president's wife proved persistent in her attempts to address the diplomatic controversy. During the main course, she began making comments about the importance of respectful dialogue between nations, clearly intending to create opportunities for discussing the afternoon's diplomatic incident. Prince Charles recognized her strategy and implemented more direct communication signals to manage the developing situation. His wineglass positioning provided detailed instructions to staff about intervention timing and methods. Moving his glass slightly toward the center of the table indicated that immediate intervention was needed to prevent escalation of tension. The response was masterful in its subtlety. The sommelier approached with additional wine service that required brief interruption of conversation, while a footman created minor distraction by adjusting the lighting slightly to enhance the appearance of the table settings. These small interventions provided natural breaks that allowed Prince Charles to redirect discussion toward topics that highlighted positive aspects of British-French cooperation. His bread plate positioning provided additional communication about conversation management preferences. Adjusting the plate slightly to the right indicated that he wanted to encourage discussion of cultural and historical connections between the nations. Moving it to the left suggested that conversation should focus on future cooperation opportunities rather than past achievements or current controversies. The success of these signal-based interventions demonstrated Prince Charles's sophisticated understanding of diplomatic communication and his ability to manage complex social situations while maintaining appropriate courtesy and respect for all participants. The French delegation gradually relaxed as they recognized his genuine commitment to productive dialogue despite the challenging circumstances. The turning point came during the cheese course when Prince Charles used his napkin signals to indicate that he was prepared to address the diplomatic controversy directly but in a way that would strengthen rather than damage the relationship. His napkin positioning communicated to staff that they should be prepared to support extended discussion while ensuring that the conversation remained constructive. His approach was remarkable in its diplomatic sophistication. Rather than ignoring the elephant in the room or allowing it to create ongoing tension, Prince Charles acknowledged the afternoon's difficulties while emphasizing his confidence in the strength of British-French relationships and his commitment to resolving misunderstandings through direct, respectful communication. The French president responded positively to this approach, appreciating the prince's willingness to address difficult topics honestly while maintaining appropriate diplomatic courtesy. The conversation that followed was productive and substantive, covering not only the immediate controversy but also broader questions about effective communication between allied nations. Prince Charles's signals during this crucial conversation demonstrated advanced diplomatic skills that went far beyond simple event management. His communication with staff ensured that the discussion received appropriate time and attention while maintaining the supportive environment necessary for productive resolution of conflicts. His hand gestures provided continuous feedback to staff about conversation progress and his assessment of guest reactions. Open hand positions indicated satisfaction with discussion development and confidence that productive outcomes were being achieved. Closed hand positions suggested that additional support might be needed to maintain positive momentum. The dessert course provided opportunities for lighter conversation that built on the successful resolution of the earlier tension. Prince Charles used his cutlery positioning to indicate preferences for conversation topics that would conclude the evening on positive notes while reinforcing the productive outcomes that had been achieved. His final signals of the evening demonstrated the comprehensive nature of royal communication systems when applied to challenging diplomatic situations. The coordination between conversation management, service timing, staff positioning, and environmental adjustments created an atmosphere that supported successful resolution of conflicts while maintaining the dignity and effectiveness expected of royal entertaining. The French delegation departed with obvious satisfaction about the evening's outcomes. The president specifically thanked Prince Charles for his thoughtful handling of the diplomatic difficulties, noting that the experience had strengthened his confidence in the possibility of resolving international disagreements through respectful dialogue and mutual understanding. The success of this challenging dinner illustrated how royal communication signals could be adapted and enhanced to meet exceptional circumstances while maintaining their fundamental effectiveness. Prince Charles had demonstrated that traditional protocol methods could evolve to address complex diplomatic challenges without losing their essential character. Staff members gained valuable experience in supporting royal communication under pressure, learning how signal systems could be expanded and intensified when situations required extraordinary coordination and timing precision. Their success in interpreting and responding to enhanced signal complexity strengthened the palace's capability to manage future challenging events. The evening also provided insights into the evolution of royal diplomatic skills and the continued relevance of sophisticated communication systems in international relationship management. Prince Charles's innovative approach to signal enhancement demonstrated how traditional methods could be developed to meet changing requirements while preserving their fundamental effectiveness and dignity. The revelation came during Catherine, Princess of Wales's first major solo state dinner, when she discovered that the traditional royal dining signals were completely invisible to modern security systems and digital recording equipment. What had seemed like a potential vulnerability actually represented one of the monarchy's greatest advantages in an age of constant surveillance and social media scrutiny. Dr. Emily Richardson, the palace's newly appointed digital communications advisor, had been studying video recordings from recent royal events to identify potential security concerns when she made the remarkable discovery. Hours of footage from multiple camera angles showed no clear evidence of the sophisticated communication system that she knew operated during every major royal dining event. "It's extraordinary," she explained to Catherine during their weekly briefing meeting. "Even when we know exactly what to look for and have access to professional video equipment positioned throughout the room, the signals are virtually undetectable. The system has evolved to be completely invisible to modern surveillance methods." This discovery had profound implications for royal security and privacy in the digital age. While other aspects of royal life faced increasing scrutiny from advanced recording technology and social media analysis, the dining communication system remained protected by its inherent subtlety and the skill with which it had been developed over generations. Catherine had been developing her own variations of royal dining signals since joining the family, building on techniques learned from observing the Queen and other senior royals while adding elements that reflected her personal communication style and the unique challenges she faced as a modern royal figure. Her approach emphasized signals that would appear completely natural even under close examination by digital analysis software designed to detect unusual patterns in human behavior. The techniques she developed were so subtle that they could be performed during live television broadcasts without any risk of detection or misinterpretation by viewers. The state dinner that evening would test Catherine's signal system under the most challenging conditions possible. The event was being filmed for a documentary about modern royal entertaining, with multiple camera crews positioned throughout Buckingham Palace and sophisticated audio recording equipment monitoring conversations from various angles. The guest list included technology industry leaders, digital media experts, and social media influencers who were specifically trained to observe and analyze human behavior patterns for professional purposes. If the royal communication signals could remain invisible under these circumstances, it would confirm their continued effectiveness in the digital age. Catherine's signal development reflected her understanding of how human behavior analysis had evolved with advancing technology. Traditional royal signals had been designed to avoid detection by human observers, but modern challenges required techniques that would also escape notice from algorithmic analysis and pattern recognition software. Her primary innovation involved integrating the signals so seamlessly into natural conversation gestures that they became indistinguishable from normal human expressiveness. Unlike traditional signals that involved specific object positioning or deliberate movements, Catherine's techniques used variations in timing, rhythm, and intensity of natural gestures to communicate complex information. The documentation system for these enhanced signals required extensive training for staff members, who had to learn to recognize subtle differences in gesture patterns while maintaining their ability to respond appropriately to traditional royal communication methods used by other family members. As the evening began, Catherine positioned herself to test the most challenging aspects of her signal system. The receiving line location placed her directly in view of multiple camera angles while requiring constant interaction with guests who included several individuals trained in behavioral analysis and communication pattern recognition. Her greeting signals used micro-variations in handshake duration and eye contact timing to communicate information about each guest's importance level and preferred interaction style. These signals were so slight that they required exceptional training for staff members to recognize, but they provided detailed guidance for managing the complex social dynamics of the evening. The technology industry guests represented a unique challenge because their professional expertise included understanding how communication patterns could reveal hidden information about organizational structures and decision-making processes. Catherine had to maintain natural interaction while providing essential coordination information to her staff. Her conversation management signals used natural speech rhythm variations that appeared completely spontaneous but actually provided sophisticated timing information for service coordination and topic management. The technique required extensive practice to master, as it involved consciously controlling subconscious communication elements while maintaining authentic engagement with guests. The dining room arrangements for the documentary filming created additional complexity, with camera equipment and recording devices positioned to capture every aspect of the event from multiple perspectives. Catherine's signals had to remain invisible not only to human observers but also to advanced recording equipment that could detect subtle patterns invisible to direct observation. Her napkin signals represented perhaps the most sophisticated development in royal communication technique. Using variations in folding patterns and placement timing that appeared completely random, she could communicate detailed information about conversation preferences, service timing adjustments, and intervention requirements for managing difficult social situations. The complexity of maintaining these enhanced signals while appearing completely natural under documentary filming conditions required extraordinary concentration and skill. Catherine had to monitor multiple conversation streams while coordinating with serving staff and managing the broader social dynamics of international diplomatic entertaining. The technology guests proved particularly observant, with several commenting on the smooth coordination of service and conversation management throughout the evening. However, their observations focused on the impressive results rather than the communication methods used to achieve them, confirming the effectiveness of Catherine's enhanced signal techniques. Her wine service signals used microgestures integrated into natural drinking movements to provide detailed timing information for course progression and conversation management. The signals were so subtle that they required specialized training for serving staff, but they enabled precise coordination without any visible communication between Catherine and her support team. The documentary cameras captured countless hours of footage showing Catherine's natural interaction with guests, smooth coordination of service timing, and effective management of complex conversation dynamics. However, subsequent analysis of the recordings revealed no clear evidence of the sophisticated communication system that had orchestrated every aspect of the evening's success. This invisibility to digital recording equipment validated Catherine's approach to signal development and confirmed the continued relevance of royal communication traditions in the modern era. The system had successfully evolved to meet digital age challenges while maintaining its fundamental effectiveness and elegance. The international guests expressed particular admiration for the seamless coordination of the evening's events, with several noting that their experience had exceeded expectations based on previous diplomatic entertaining they had attended in other countries. Their positive feedback confirmed that enhanced signal systems could improve guest experience while maintaining complete invisibility. Catherine's bread service signals demonstrated advanced integration of communication techniques with natural dining behavior. Using variations in breaking patterns and eating timing that appeared completely spontaneous, she could provide complex information about conversation redirection needs and guest comfort assessment requirements. The success of the evening under documentary filming conditions provided valuable validation for continued development of royal communication techniques. Catherine had proven that traditional signal systems could be enhanced and modernized while maintaining their essential invisibility and effectiveness. Her post-dinner signals used natural fatigue expressions and conversation conclusion techniques to coordinate the evening's end while maintaining gracious hospitality and ensuring positive final impressions for all participants. The techniques were so natural that they appeared to be spontaneous responses to the evening's energy rather than deliberate coordination methods. The documentary producers later commented on their inability to understand how such complex coordination had been achieved without visible communication between Catherine and her staff. Their puzzlement confirmed the success of enhanced signal development and the continued effectiveness of royal communication traditions. Staff training for Catherine's enhanced signals required months of preparation and practice, but the investment proved worthwhile when the techniques enabled flawless coordination under the most challenging observation conditions possible. The success strengthened confidence in the royal family's ability to maintain privacy and effective communication despite increasing digital scrutiny. The evolution of royal dining signals to meet digital age challenges demonstrated the dynamic nature of monarchy traditions and their ability to adapt to changing circumstances while preserving essential character and effectiveness. Catherine's innovation showed how established methods could be enhanced for modern requirements while maintaining their fundamental invisibility and sophistication. The evening's success provided a model for future royal entertaining in an increasingly connected and monitored world. The proof that sophisticated communication systems could remain invisible even to advanced recording and analysis technology ensured that royal families could continue to manage complex social and diplomatic situations with the privacy and effectiveness that had characterized successful monarchy for centuries. These developments confirmed that royal dining signals would continue to evolve and adapt, maintaining their crucial role in supporting effective monarchy while meeting the challenges of technological advancement and increased public scrutiny that defined the modern royal experience.